My belief is that we all know someone that has not been naturalized. This is my belief. I don't know if it's the reality, but this is my belief. I don't know if you agree with me, Ms. Pinnock. Yeah, totally. We all know someone, right, that has just not been naturalized.
And I've been here for 20, 30, 40 years.
So for whatever reason, these are things that continue to happen in our community, you know. Every time I speak about this situation, I speak about some girls that I grew up with, right? And these are children who came here. We went to high school together, before high school, and they came here because their parents came here. Their mom or dad came here, whatever the situation was. And then guess what? They don't know how they got here, but they got here. And up until this day, they can't get naturalized because they have no understanding of how they got here and no proof of how they got here. You know what I mean? And, you know, the other day I spoke to one of them, and she was really worried about this situation because she's been here living, went to school, high school, blah, 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 you know, contributed to the economy and the taxes and everything, but it seems like there's no end of the rainbow for her. Yeah. Let's talk about this, and let's, you know, please give your understanding to everyone that's listening to us tonight. Long conversation that we're going to have about immigration.
Yeah, it is my absolute pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having me. I wanted to let people know, because there's been a lot of questions about why this is happening. And, you know, part of what I think a lot of people are not aware is that although Donald Trump signed 2 executive orders trying to ban people from coming, Muslims from coming into the United States, that were both blocked by the courts, there is one executive order called the Executive Order Enhancing Public Safety in the Interior of the United States. And this is the one that he relies on. This is the one that ICE is executing daily by going into homes and restaurants and people's jobs and picking them up, you know, and taking them into custody. Now, what's happened is most of the people that will be picked up by ICE already either A, have a final order of deportation, or B, have a conviction. And usually the conviction is a felony. It's the, you know, you really rarely find people being picked up for misdemeanors. But the felony convictions and the final orders of removal are really the main reasons. Now, what happens is if you go onto someone's job and you're there with a warrant, an ICE warrant saying you're there to pick them up, and they're undocumented people walking around, they're in danger of being taken into custody as well.
So let me stop you. ICE will not come into the facility and only come for that one person and leave. They will then ask everyone else.
Right, because this executive order tells them that they have the right to protect the interiors of the United States. And the executive order actually talks about people being convicted of offenses and having final orders who are still here because their countries don't want them for whatever reason. So he's given them the authority to pick up these people if they can determine. That's why there were these things going around where they were asking you to identify yourself. And so I'm telling people to walk with your papers. It might sound like we're in Nazi Germany, but this is kind of the reality of the world we're living in now. If you're a U.S. citizen, I would walk around with maybe a copy of that little card they give you, the passport card, or maybe a copy of your citizenship certificate, the copy of it. Keep the original in a safe place. If you're a green card holder, I would have your green card on you at all times. Now, if you're undocumented, listen to me carefully. You need to go figure out a way to get your green card, right? If you're undocumented, this is not the time to be walking around without papers. It's not, because you run the risk of being picked up by ICE. I don't believe the whole thing about them going into restaurants. By the way, that whole dumpling thing was not true. I don't know if everybody heard about that.
Okay.
Where they supposedly went into dumpling restaurant in the Bronx. It was not true. The Consul General of New York, Trudy Deans, called the dumpling restaurant the next day, and we were told that some disgruntled employee was fired and that's why she started sending out these things.
Okay.
On you know, so
and that sent a lot of panic throughout the community.
Did. And then what happened? Most people are blocking and boycotting Dumpling Restaurant, which is really unfortunate. But the bottom line is that, you know, you really need to be aware that if you're not documented, especially if you have a conviction or a final order of deportation, you need to be extremely careful, because there's a good possibility that ICE could pick you up and take you into custody. And this is where, you know, we run the risk as Jamaicans living in the diaspora, run the risk of being put into deportation proceedings. I heard about a girl that they called me about this morning that they just picked up. She went to work, and she had a conviction from 1998. Okay, and some issue where she didn't pay the fine or whatever she was supposed to do, and ICE went specifically for her, and they grabbed her and processed her, and now she's in a detention center in New Jersey. So it's really very, very, and she's Jamaican. Very sad.
718-554-8598. We're going to be talking immigration here. We're just getting started. There is so much to talk about. Those of you who have heard, you know, things that you want clarification on, please give us a call when we say that the phone lines are open, and Ms. Pinnock will do her best to kind of give you her professional understanding of these situations. 718-554-8598. Now, so ICE doesn't just get up and walk the street and look for people.
They don't.
And this is one of the the misunderstandings.
Big
you know,
time, big time.
Are these roadblocks that's happening? Are they true?
Well, some of them are, but they have to do it under the authority of the police, because what happened is that this same executive order is giving the police officers the power of working closely with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So, in other words, the police can stop you. If you're operating a motor vehicle, and you're stopped, and there's probable cause for the stop. Maybe your lights were, you know, your windows were tinted, your headlights were out. They can do a routine stop and say that they're doing roadblocks. They can do that. And if sometimes they'll walk around with ICE officers at the time when they're doing it, and they can ask you at that point, can I see your documents? There was something on WhatsApp where there was a white guy that they stopped. I don't know if you guys saw it, and the guy was refusing. He's like, I'm not in Nazi Germany. I'm sorry, I'm not giving you my papers. Excuse me, I'm late for work. So black people can't do that. We wouldn't get away with that. They would have been a whole different end if a black person had done that. So, but the roadblocks, if it's, you know, anytime you operate a motor vehicle, it is legal for police officers to pull you over and ask for your documents. But there really has to be a reason for them to stop you. They can't just stop you because they feel. But I mean, we know that in the past, driving while black, you know, is a situation that we've had to deal with as people of color in the United States. However, you know, there have been roadblocks where people stop and they routinely want to know where you're going and see your documents to make sure. And if there are people in the car, you know, then, you know, they're subject to search, and they're subject to being taken into custody.
So there's a number of topics that I want to speak to you about, and I'll just go down my list, and we'll have a vibe on each one. Immigrant rights. Okay. Which I think is important. What is your rights as an immigrant?
If you're a green card holder, you have rights. If you're a green card holder and if you're a U.S. citizen, you have rights. If you're undocumented, you have none.
Can you be deported or subject to deportation as a green card holder?
Yes, if you have a conviction. If you have a conviction, that's the only time they can take your green card away. If you have not been convicted of an offense, you absolutely cannot be deported, because they have to have a reason for putting you in deportation. Because the way it works is that you have your green card, you get in trouble, you break the law for whatever reason, or you had some conviction like 10, 20 years ago, you can be picked up by immigration even if you have the green card because of that conviction.
These offenses, do they have to be misdemeanors will also?
Well, more than one misdemeanor will equal a felony. So that's the issue. Because if it's just one, you really are not, you don't have much to worry about. But if you've, like I've dealt with clients who've had 3 convictions for possession of drugs, that will be, even though it sounds like just possession, but 3 will amount to a felony.
So in Jamaican terms, in West Indian terms,
yes,
if you were picked up 3 times for a spliff,
right,
you can be deported.
You can be deported, exactly, because it's too many times. And they talk about moral character, and it's more than 2 times. And so it's going to now amount to a felony. conviction. So that's the issue. So if it's repeated, then they're going to look at it as this guy obviously don't care and he's breaking the law because it's. I look at what's happened now. Marijuana is legal in so many states, but a lot of these convictions happened 10, 20 years ago.
And how far back will they go in
as far back as they
need to deport you?
As far back as they need to deport you. But what I've been seeing is that they're kind of going down the list and checking people who have, convictions who were, pretty serious felonies, like sale of marijuana, possession with intent to distribute marijuana. Those kinds of charges, really are at the top of the list. Murder, rape, aggravated felonies, those kinds of things are the priority immigrants.
If the ICE is looking for John Tom, and John Tom works at a mechanic, a body shop, and ICE comes there for John Tom, and they decide that they are going to, look at everybody else's, situation. Could that person that has a misdemeanor for smoking a spliff, jumping the turnstile, and maybe peeing in public, could he also be, or she be also taken up by them at the time?
No, if that person, because they're not going to know if a different person has been charged or convicted of an offense. If they come for John Tom, they're looking for John Tom. If they happen to ask you, can I see your ID or something, and you have nothing, then it's sort of a situation where you're subject to be picked up. They have the right to do that. But for the most part, typically, they go for John Tom. The focus is him. And they get him.
Can ICE be able to tell that you are an immigrant based on your driver's license?
Absolutely. Because most driver's licenses that are issued to immigrants have an expiration date on it. And it's sometimes a year. Because when you're given a work authorization card, your work card is valid for 1 year. So they will give you, the DMV will give you a driver's license that will expire in a year, because that's the period of time that immigration says you're legal. Okay, not beyond that. I mean, sometimes they're lucky and they're fortunate where they get a 5-year license occasionally. But for the most part, this is how they're able to tell. When you're looking at like a 1-year license situation, then you know that person is an immigrant, because their work authorization card will expire within a year.
So when ICE looks at, when they stop a vehicle and they say driver's license, or they come into a venue and say driver's license, what are they looking for on that driver's license?
They want to see if it had the expiration date. There's a code as well that's on the license that indicates that this person is an immigrant. So they would identify it by looking at that license to determine exactly what status this person has. But I mean, for the most part, if you have a license, it doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. You know what I mean? So if they're stopping you, it's actually a good thing, because if you have a license that's still valid, it means that you're legal in the country for the most part.
So the reason why they ask for the license is because if you're not naturalized, then you shouldn't have a license.
Not really. No, because if you're not naturalized and you're a green card holder, then you still would be issued a driver's license, but it would have an expiration date on it. But you raise a valid point. Everybody who's eligible to get naturalization needs to go right away and do it. I'm encouraging people, because those are really the only protected group in the United States of Jamaicans in the diaspora and other Caribbean nationals. We are not protected unless we're naturalized, because if you're just a green card holder and you get in trouble with the law, you're subject to deportation. But as I was saying about the license, they can tell, because the expiration date will probably be something within a year or two from when it was originally issued.
You speak of being becoming a U.S. citizen, right?
Yes.
Now, there are so many people who are listening to our conversation now in the diaspora, and I know many of them have questions. But there's also, I know growing up around Caribbean people, there's also this attachment that they have to their country, the patriotism, right? Mm-hmm. Does it mean when you become a U.S. citizen that you have to let go of the citizenship of your home country?
Never. You actually are afforded dual citizenship, and that's not a magic proceedings. All it is that you maintain your Jamaican, your Antiguan, your Trinidadian passport, and when you travel into those countries, you present that, and you get to stay as long as you want, as opposed to when you go with your U.S. passport. So it really is, you can have dual citizenship with most of the countries in the Caribbean.
So being Americanized or naturalized, I should say. Right, becoming a citizen of the U.S. doesn't mean that you turn your back on Antigua or Guyana or Trinidad or wherever you come from. You can still bear your citizenship to that country as well.
You were born there, so you never ever relinquish citizenship to that country in which you were born.
In your years of dealing with immigration, what is the standout purpose why people just don't get their citizenship?
Well, I spoke to one lady the other day, and she was telling me, "Oh, I was just planning on retiring and going back to Jamaica." So I figure, so why do I need to become a U.S. citizen? Because I'm not going to live here forever. So I said to her, we're living in Trump time now. What do you think? And she said, I'm going to get my citizenship. And I said to her, you always can have your U.S. passport along with your Jamaican passport. So because of the dual citizenship rule. So it's a loyalty, it's a commitment to your country, it's a refusal to give up your Jamaican-ness, your, Trinidadian roots, your Antiguan, roots. It's just this feeling, and it's a misconception because you're not giving it up. You were born on the island. You will always be a citizen of that island. You'll never, ever give it up. So if you're in the United States, you're here, you've been a green card holder for 5 years. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, it's 3 years. You're a person of good moral character, and you're over 18. You are eligible to naturalize. The form is called, it's an N-400 that you fill out. The filing fee now is actually $725, but you can actually waive it if you don't make a lot of money.
For those who are listening, and I'm going to open the phone lines in a few seconds, but for those who are listening, give me the comparison of being a green card holder versus being a citizen.
Okay.
What powers do you have or do you lack in each situation?
As a citizen, you can vote, and that is probably the most important right that you will have as someone coming from another country. You are able to vote for presidents, you can vote for mayors, you can vote for governors. In any primary elections, you have that option. As a citizen, you can hold a federal job, which is pretty significant. So you can work for like the post office and most of the federal places the Social Security office, where you wouldn't be able to work for if you're a green card holder. As a citizen, you can petition for your relatives, your child who's under 21, your spouse, and your parent if you're over 21. And the petition is a quicker process. So if you're a U.S. citizen and you file for your husband or wife, it's a 6-month to 9-month process for that person to get their green card. If you're a green card holder, it's going to take 2 to 3 years. If you're a green card holder, you cannot vote. And let me say this again. If you're a green card holder, you cannot vote. And I'm saying this because I've had this so many times where people are assuming that because they got a green card, they're able to go in and cast a vote. You cannot. And if it's discovered that you have been, you could be put in deportation proceedings because that's a violation of the terms of your green card.
718-554-8598. I want to ask you one more question before we open the phone lines. I see some people are trying to get through. Again, those of you, if you're just tuning in, we're speaking immigration with Joan Pinnock tonight. So many of you had so many, things that you wanted to discuss. Many of you asked me, Chin, let's discuss something that's happening right here in the diaspora that's affecting all of us. So tonight, that is what we're doing. People who are neither a citizen or neither a green card holder, persons who probably are not eligible to become a green card holder, what's that advice for them? What's their situation like?
Well, there's some people who think that they're not eligible, but they are. Like a lot of the people who came into the United States illegally in other people's names, I've managed to get lots and lots of green cards for those people, because if you're married to a U.S. citizen and there's any kinds of abuse or anything going on in the marriage, it doesn't have to be physical. It can be mental or emotional. We can file a battered spouse petition for you. The United States Citizenship and Immigration Service looks at you as a victim. You can get your green card.
Even if you came here illegally?
Even if you came here illegally. I've got hundreds, and the people who know me will know that that's my specialty, the battered spouse cases. So if you're married to a U.S. citizen and you came in somebody else's name, or you came across the border, you didn't have your right documents, and you're married to a U.S. citizen, and there's any kinds of issues going on in your marriage, we can file a battered spouse application on your behalf, and you can get your green card.
That person would have to have documented proof, though, correct?
Well, yeah, but it's mental abuse. I send you to a psychologist. They write a report saying that your husband is mentally abusing you, or your spouse, your wife is mentally abusing you, even the fact that they refuse to go to the immigration interview with you because they feel like it's power and they want to use this control over you because they feel like they're the U.S. citizen. That's abuse. Okay, and so I use that. I have you go to talk to a psychologist. I have 3 or 4 of your relatives write letters for me, and I prepare a package. And as long as I can show, A, that the marriage is real, meaning you're living with your spouse, and B, that you've been the victim of abuse, you get your green card. They do not look at how you entered. You're treated as a victim. So that's something that a lot of people are not aware of.
I wasn't aware of that.
And we do several of those yearly.
What about people who come here legally but overstay? Just decide them now go back.
Yeah, well, those people need to get married. Those people need to find a husband. If they came legally and they overstayed, they need to find a husband or wife, or they need to have a child if they do over 21 petition for them. Those people are eligible if they can get, a husband or a wife. They're going to have to get married.
But those who overstayed naturally could be deported if they get into the wrong situation.
Absolutely, because they've deported people for being overstays. That is one of the categories on the charges that immigration will charge you with if you're put in deportation proceedings as an overstay.
718-554-8598. Let's open the phone lines right now. But before we do, Joan, please give everyone your credentials. I don't think that people know what type of power is sitting here in the studio tonight.
Thank you so much.
Give them your credentials.
Well, I've been an immigration attorney since 1997. I am president of the Jamaican-American Bar Association for the past 6 years. And the most important role that I have is I am actually the lead Jamaican in the entire Northeast diaspora. I was appointed by the Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Arnaldo Brown, in 2015 after a rigorous election that I won. The Jamaican government decided to create a board in the diaspora to deal with the Jamaicans within that area. So there's a board member who's a lead in the Northeast. There's one in the Southern region, and there's one in the West Midwest. I am the lead Jamaican over all the Jamaicans that are in the Northeast United States, and I've held that position since 2015, and that's what I do. And in addition to that, as I said, the Bar Association president for the past 6 years, and I have offices in Newark, New Jersey, in Brooklyn, New York. I see clients in Connecticut as well, and so I've been doing this since 1997. And I've represented several people. In 2015, I was successful in going back to Jamaica and returning 2 deported Jamaican siblings back to the United States as citizens. And that was actually a project that I just started because I wanted to see what I could do to help. At one of the diaspora conferences, I did a day of service, and I said, call in all deportees, and they all came. And I sat with each of them individually, myself and another attorney, Wayne Golden, who's the advisory board member in Florida. And we sat with them, and I discovered, this brother and sister, that they had derived citizenship from their U.S. citizen mom, he was deported 3 times. He was deported back in the 90s. He went back to the U.S. illegally. They sent him back. Then he went back again, and they let him spend 5 years in prison for reentry and then sent him back again. And there he comes into my room, and it was free. It was all pro bono. We talked. I figured out what to do. I told him. I applied for his U.S. passport, and he got it. And I was successful in bringing him back. If you look online, you'll see me praying with him at the airport. And I brought him and his sister back to the U.S. They now live in Maryland with their mother, who's a U.S. citizen, and it's a happily ever after story. And currently I'm working with other Jamaicans who've been deported. I'm also the convener of a group called the Task Force, the Immigration and Deportation Prevention Task Force that I started last November when Donald Trump won the election. And I basically decided that I was going to do whatever I could to stop him. So every few months I go down to Jamaica. I was there 2 weeks ago meeting with the deportees and with the government to see if I could get them to work with me to try to help our people. And right now, unfortunately, I'm embarrassed to say they're not willing because of whatever the relationship is between them and Donald Trump. But there's everything takes time.
But you have a lot of things in motion and trying to help as much as you can.
Absolutely.
The phone calls are coming in. 718-554-8598. Caller, you're live. Caller, you're live.
Yes. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm listening to the program there. there's a question for the attorney. There's a certain time when during the Clinton administration where the law changed, because I've known people early 90s that were charged with certain charge, and that wasn't deportable at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But after another time, it's deportable. So she was saying that they would go way back to find what to deport you for. I don't know. She needs to clarify that time point there.
Okay, 1996, sir, is the law that you're talking about. It's IRA. They call it 245I. Bill Clinton signed a bill into law that says that if you were convicted of an offense and the offense was prior to 1996, you actually are supposed to be okay. For the most part, you're okay. If you're a green card holder, if you're a green card holder, it's okay. If you're not a green card holder and you committed an offense before 1996, it doesn't matter. You're subject to deportation, and that is absolutely the law. Because if you're
understood, because you don't have a status, you don't have no rights.
Exactly. So I've been able to get citizenship for people who had crimes that were back in 92. Because of the fact that it was so old that we made the argument that that person, because of the hardship to their spouse and their family, should be able to naturalize. So you're absolutely right. 1996, for everybody listening, was when the law changed, where Bill Clinton signed this bill and they started going back and arresting people because of the convictions.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
718-554-8598 is the number in studio. 718-554-8598 is the number in studio. Of course, attorney Joan Pinnock is in the building. We're talking immigration today. Different type of setting for a sound chat show. But of course, we entertain with the music and educate with the conversation. Call your live.
Yeah, good night. I want to ask a question. What about kids that's under 18, that's undocumented, that go to school?
Okay, there is a beautiful thing that Barack Obama did called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It's DACA. If they came into the United States before their 16th birthday, they're eligible for DACA, and they're here, and they're over 16 now. You can apply for DACA. That'll give them a work authorization card. They'll be able to get a social security number, and all the work card is actually valid for 2 years. So you'll be able to get legal status for those children, but they have to be here prior to their 16th birthday. So for them
what
to be...
What about the child? He came here one day, he entered the school system one day before he's 16.
Yeah, that's it. As long as it's the day before. As long as he came before he turned 16, he's good. He can do the DACA. And he just has to have proof that he went to school, proof that he's been here continuously. Absolutely. So your son is good. He can get the deferred action, and he'll get a 2-year green card. Work card. 2-year work card. He can apply for the license. He can apply for a social. He can go to college.
So do we have to graduate from high school first?
Well, that's one of the requirements, that you have to graduate from high school. But we've found a way around that. We can do, the thing that you apply for when you're not a graduate of high school. So if that's the case, what is that called?
GED?
GED, yeah. So you can go online and register for the GED. And as long as he has a certificate, then he's okay. He doesn't have to actually have graduated.
Yeah. He's currently in school right now.
Okay.
He's 17 now.
Okay, good. So. Right. So then there you go. So you just need the documentation to prove, that he came before his 16th birthday and prove that he's been here continually.
Phone lines are ringing. Caller, you're live.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, I'm calling because I filed for my husband. He's now a resident, and we are filing for his citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying to us that, he's going for his interview, and they're saying that I need my naturalization certificate on the list of things that he needs, and I can't find my naturalization certificate. What can I do?
Well,
does he have to have it?
Well, it sounds like he's getting the citizenship based on the marriage, because it's 3 years. Is that what's happening?
No, ma'am, it's more than 3 years. We've been married for 10 years now.
Okay.
But because of Donald Trump, we decided to go ahead and become a citizen.
Right. So you've been married for 3. And how long has he been a green card holder?
He's been a green card holder now for about 10 years.
So you don't need to show anything then. Because if he's getting it not under the marriage, then you don't have to prove to them that you're even married. He just has to apply and go in there with his credentials to show that he's been a green card holder for at least 5 years, and that he's done everything to, he doesn't owe child support, he doesn't owe taxes or anything like that. You do not need sometimes those forms that you're looking at are generic, and they just assume, they kind of just do general requirements. But if your husband has been a green card holder for more than 5 years, he does not need your paperwork to show. You have an American passport, though, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so you have that to show that you're a citizen. You're good.
718-554-8598. Miss Pinnock, is there a reason for our Caribbean people to be in a state of panic right now?
I don't like to make people scared, but I wouldn't say enough. I would say it this way. If you're in a situation living in the United States and you're undocumented and you're a green card holder and you're not a citizen, I would take steps immediately to legalize your status. That's what I would do. I wouldn't sit around anymore. The days are gone when you were sitting around and waiting and not doing anything. Find one husband and get married.
Call your life. Call your life.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good night.
Good night. I got a question from this lady. Yeah, that I have a green card. I've been here for 16 years now, but my green card just expired.
Okay.
Can they deport me because I haven't renewed it yet?
No, sir. You're a permanent resident. I would suggest that you apply for your citizenship instead of spending the money to go renew the green card.
I did a test for it already 2 years ago for my citizenship, and they did not give it to me.
You failed the test?
Huh?
Did you fail the test?
No, I passed the test, but they sent me a letter said I failed to comply with the documents they asked me for a letter from my daughter mom.
Okay. All right. So let me just stay on the phone for one quick second. They will deny your citizenship if you're a man that owes child support or if you can't prove that you're supporting your children. If you're a person who owes taxes, if you have been convicted of an offense, those are the reasons why they'll deny you. So I would apply again, get a certified letter from your daughter's mom saying that you pay child support and you take care of your child.
The phone lines are blazing. Let me ask you this now, based on that gentleman's situation.
Right.
And I'm just trying to come up with scenarios because someone out there can relate to what we're talking about. Ninja, Chin, Drew. We're all going to come up with different scenarios of that someone else in the diaspora may be facing.
Right.
Now, I am a green card holder. I'm speaking, just hypothetically.
Right.
And my green card has now expired. And now I have to go and renew it. However, I do have these felonies or these whole heap of misdemeanors, in my history. Can I be raising a red flag by going to renew my green card?
Because what's going to happen is that you're going to be fingerprinted. And when you put when you go to do the fingerprint, you're okay. Because nobody's going to know who you are. And they have to run the prints. And if they find out that these things are in your past, you could be in trouble.
So if they weren't looking for me, but I just put myself on their radar by going to renew my green card.
Yes, absolutely.
So how do I go around that? Just going straight for citizenship?
Well, yeah, but I would, before you apply for citizenship, I would deal with the convictions. Now, there's a thing called post-conviction relief that a lot of people, I don't know if you're aware of. If you've been convicted of an offense, and at the time when you pled guilty to that offense, you were not advised of the immigration implication, you may be able to go back into criminal court and vacate those convictions. I would probably go sit with a criminal attorney if you know, say you have a whole heap of stuff behind your name. See if you can deal with it.
Call your life.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, good evening.
Good night.
I'm calling to find out about my green card because when I just came to New York, I applied for my green card was non-expired, and I lost it. And then I applied back for it again, and I received it back. Now I lost it again in July of last year. I applied back for it, and I took fingerprints and pictures and everything, and now I don't get it back.
Okay, so we need to probably do what is called an info pass appointment for you. You'd have to go online, sir, on the immigration website, www.uscis.gov, and click on info pass and try to make an appointment to go down to Federal Plaza. You live in New York?
In Federal Plaza?
Yeah, 26 Federal Plaza. You live in New York, right?
Yes.
Okay.
26 Federal Plaza?
Yeah, 26 Federal Plaza. That's where you need to. So you need to book an appointment to go because they will tell you exactly what happened to the green card.
718-554-8598. Caller, you're live. Caller, you're live.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I called to ask a question, please.
Sure.
I'm married and they deny me my green card.
Why?
So I don't know. They deny me and put me in deportation. So I want to know if my daughter is 21 if she could file for me.
Yeah, but it depends because did they put you in deportation?
Yes.
So have you been deported or you have to go to court?
No, not deported. They just give me the letter.
Okay. Right. So what you're going to do is your daughter is over 21. She's a U.S. citizen? Okay. When you go to court, you need to, I don't know if you have an attorney or you're going by yourself, but your daughter could actually file for you and give you the green card that you didn't get through your husband. Okay, because when you go before an immigration judge and you're in deportation, you have the opportunity of applying for what is called relief from deportation. And one of the forms of relief would be a green card through your daughter. It would be adjustment of status to your U.S. citizen daughter. You absolutely can do that. In fact, what I would suggest you do is start having her start filing from now. So she would put in an I-130 application. So at least by the time you're ready to go to court, you would at least have a receipt notice so you can let the judge know that your daughter is filing for you. And that's how you're going to get out of deportation.
718-554-8598 is the number in studio. Of course, we changed the programming a little bit tonight. Myself, Ninja Drew, we're sitting here with attorney Joan Pinnock, and we're just trying to get some answers for those of you in the community. We don't have issues, but every one of us in this room knows someone who wants answers to some of these questions. So as strange as the questions may sound, please bear with me, Ms. Pinnock, because I know that there are people out there that the questions and answers may relate to them. So especially, one of the things that, I think that was because someone just hit me up on WhatsApp and was saying, thank you for asking that question. And the question was about the expired green card now going in to renew the green card, but you have a couple of misdemeanors and this and that and so forth and so forth. Does it put you into a jeopardizing situation, a funny situation?
I mean, I've filed applications for people and they've gotten the card, but it's, they've gotten the card. The card is mailed now. You go and you get printed, and then after the prints down the road, the card should be mailed. But you run the risk of putting yourself now on above the radar.
Now, a cousin of mine, of course, who my cousin may be, just hit me on WhatsApp. He works for ICE Immigration, and he just said that a DACA will only be granted to individuals without a criminal conviction.
Not true. I've gotten 3 or 4 of my clients. Sorry, Popo. I call it the Popo. No. I actually got DACA for somebody who has a final order of deportation. So, sorry.
So those of you, I have a cousin that's very close to me that is the mutual friend, of course, between me and Miss Pinnock.
Yes.
And I said to him that because of your profession, I need you to find a lawyer that I can trust that can explain what's going on to the diaspora and kind of soothe the chaos that's taking place in the community. And he, of course, suggested that I get in touch with Joan Pinnock. He said that she's excellent. He gave her top ratings. And now they're having a little dispute here. Yeah, because
the law says you're not supposed to. But I'm telling you that I've sent out. They've not bothered the kids. The kids are like, and that was one of the things that I was really happy that Donald Trump decided he was not going to get rid of DACA. But I have had people who have filed for DACA. I'm telling you the truth. And they've gotten it.
Before you go any further,
yes.
Can you give people information how to get to you, or if they, somebody want to contact you to get the situation sorted out, how they can get to you, where you located?
Sure. Well, what I probably could do is let me give you the number for the hotline. It's 929-320-0955. I have an office in Brooklyn, New York. It's at 147 Front Street on the second floor in Brooklyn. I also have an office in Newark, New Jersey at 972 Broad Street on the 8th floor in Newark, New Jersey. 929-320-0955. That's a hotline number for you to reach our team. So we have attorneys who are all like waiting around to hear for if somebody gets in trouble.
When you say team, and I know you said that you created a task force, let's talk about the things that you are doing to equip the people in the diaspora.
Well, we have about 20 attorneys that have joined now, and they run all the way from LA to Florida to locally in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. So what we're doing is we want to educate. So we've been going around and presenting on different issues relating to immigration. We've had one seminar. Our launch actually was in the Bronx at a church, and the Consul General was there, and we had a large number of Jamaicans who attended. And we just talk about the issues, and we have different attorneys presenting on different things: deportation, citizenship, green cards. We had a criminal attorney who talked about crimes. We had another lawyer who talked about vacating a conviction if you're convicted of an offense, that you need to get your green card or you need to become a citizen. So we go around and we do presentations. That's one of the main things. But what we do is we have a hotline, which is what I just gave out, 929-320-0955, where if you're in crisis and if you have somebody who's been picked up by ICE, you need to call. Because we have a bunch of lawyers across the United States who are ready, willing, and able to assist. So that's one of the things that we really want to do, because we realize that Donald Trump is not playing. He's not joking.
Someone is asking, I'm sorry to cut you, True. Someone is asking to repeat the number slower.
Sure. 929-320-0955. That's 929-320-0955. 929-320-0955. That's a hotline for the Immigration and Deportation Prevention Task Force.
Caller, please hold. Go ahead.
Now I have a question, because I had a friend of mine he was picked up by ICE one time. He had I think we call it
misdemeanor.
A misdemeanor, the other one, the felony, right? Mm-hmm. And I had to go down to Federal Plaza to testify on his behalf because they had picked him up and he was doing that, and he was let go, right? And I'm wondering now, is there a chance that they can reopen that up, even though he's been through the ICE process already and he was let go?
Yeah, but I mean, why did they let him go? I mean, do you know, did he apply for an application? Because there's certain waivers that you can also get if you're put in deportation. You can apply for a waiver, and if the waiver is granted, you're good. They can't touch you after that. But the waiver, you have to show hardship to a U.S. citizen wife or children in order to really get a waiver granted. So it depends on what, the reasons were why they let them go.
So a waiver is that if you have children here?
Yes. A waiver is a pardon.
Right.
It's like a pardon that the immigration judge can grant if they feel that you're deserving of it.
I hope most of you that are listening are getting some good information from this discussion. I will keep it going for a little bit longer. Miss Joan Pinnock is in the building, and we have another call on the phone line. The phone lines are definitely blazing, but we have to have conversation in the midst of taking phone calls. Caller, you're live. Caller, you're live.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Can I have Miss Pinnock number outside of the radio station?
Yes, give her the number.
929-320-0955. That's 9.
This is the number out of the radio station now?
Yes.
Yes.
This is her number.
Right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
718-554-8598 is the number in studio. Caller, you're live. Yes, go ahead. You're low. You're low. I can't hear you.
Oh, I said based on the previous callers. A previous caller said that his baby's mother. You still can't hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Can hear you now.
Okay, he said his baby's mother, which indicates that he's not married.
Right. Yeah, but if you have...
I was wondering, does that have any effect on moral turpitude? Because I understand that's one of the things that they use when they decide whether or not, to grant a green card or nationalization. They want to know that the person has moral turpitude. When he has babies out of wedlock, do they hold that against them?
No, my darling. Not if you're applying for citizenship. If you have children out of wedlock, they want to make sure that you're paying child support.
You're taking care of them.
That's what it is. Exactly. And the thing is that they need a signed, notarized letter from the mother. And that's probably why he didn't get it, because he wasn't able to produce it, and he probably didn't know what to do. So some people have like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 children. They want letters from each of the mothers confirming that you're taking care of your children. And that's one of the requirements to become a citizen.
Call your live.
Yeah, hi. I would just like to ask Ms. Pinnock. There was a law that came out in 1980 that if you had a kid born in a certain country, that kid is not a citizen or of that country that he or she was born. That kid will be a citizen of the in the country where the mother or the father came from.
Okay.
Would that kind of law affect me right now in the United States?
Well, are you referring to yourself as your parent, your father was a citizen, or your mother? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, the way it works is that what I was saying about derivative citizenship, the people that I went to Jamaica and returned, they had a U.S. citizen mother. And prior to their 18th birthday, they had their green card. So that's the thing. So you have to be a green card holder before you turn 18, and your mother has to be a citizen in order for you to qualify for that law. So that law says that you are a U.S. citizen. If your mother, and I say mother because the same doesn't really work for dads, and it's kind of a little unfair. But the way the law works is if your mother is a U.S. citizen and your parents are not married, and you are a green card holder before your 18th birthday, you are automatically a U.S. citizen. That's how it works. It's called derivative citizenship.
Let me ask you this, and I'm glad that you say that, because I'm familiar with a case in which someone, their mom was a citizen before the 18th birthday, right?
Right.
But for whatever reason possible, immigration kept asking for the father.
Right. Were the parents married?
They weren't married.
Well, usually they have to make sure that there was no marriage. So what you do is what I did with those 2 guys that I brought back. There's a document called an Affidavit of No Impediment, and you apply for it in Jamaica. It's in Spanish Town, and what it says is that the mother was not married to the father. You have to prove that, because people can just come and say the parents weren't married. You know what I mean? In order to say that they have derived to the mom, but you have to show proof that the father and the mother were not married, because that's the only. If they were married, both parents had to be U.S. citizens at the time.
If they're not married,
right?
The mother was in America, and the father never left Jamaica in his life.
Right. Exactly.
The daughter came here high school days
as a green card holder,
legally as a green card holder. In her adult life now, she's trying to become a citizen.
Right.
And every time she tries to, there's a question about the dad, proofing about the dad.
Okay, so there's an issue about something called what they call legalization, as to whether or not the father, acknowledge her when I would just tell her to just apply the regular way. If she doesn't have any convictions and she never had any trouble with the law, she should just send in the N-400 and just become a normal citizen. Because sometimes they'll give you a hard time because they want to prove that your father, was in the picture at the time when you were growing up. She should just send in the application for regular citizenship instead of trying to go through that, because she's probably too old. She's probably way over 18 at this point.
Way over.
Yeah.
718-554-8598. We are having some immigration conversation here at Sound Chat Radio, giving you some good understanding about the chaos that's going on and trying to settle your minds a little bit. Miss Joan Pinnock is in the building. Those of you, please take advantage of this special, edition of Sound Chat Radio tonight. And there's a friend that you said you're going to have us speak to in a few, right?
Yeah, Mr. Herb Nelson. Yes, he is. He's waiting too. I text you his number.
And tell me before I go to this call, tell me why you want us to talk to Mr.
Well,
Herb
I
Nelson.
kind of wanted. Now, I told you about the Immigration and Deportation Prevention Task Force. Mr. Nelson is part of a crime prevention task force in Jamaica. So it's kind of the other perspective. He basically is not the president, but he's one of the members of the task force. And he was a former law enforcement officer in Jamaica. And he works for the government here as well. So it's sort of like the other perspective, you know, where I told him, I said, I'm a defense attorney. I can't see anybody getting, apprehended or taken into custody. But because he's law enforcement, it's almost like
he can give the other side of the story.
Exactly.
And on the notes, it says that he worked for the CIA or he works for them.
To say CIA.
I'm sorry. Intelligence.
Yes,
okay, I'm sorry.
That's it.
I'm sorry. Intelligence. Yes. I didn't say that a while ago. So if you want to hear it, I never say it. Yeah, scratch it. Call you live.
I have a question real quick, right?
Sure. Good night. One second. Go ahead, Ninja.
You mentioned that if a person, say for instance, you have a child here, you have to get a letter from the mother of the child to send in.
Right.
What if
citizenship?
Right. Yeah. What if that person don't get along with the baby mother? Not getting along at all, and to get a letter from the baby mother is impossible.
Good question.
How can he go around?
Well, now let me ask you: is it a situation where you're paying child support to the court?
He's taking care of the child.
Right.
But he might be mother not really see eye to eye. So him going to her for a letter, she can say, no,
But how is he paying child support? Is it paying it through the courts? Because if it's in the courts, then you have a case number with probation and you can show that.
Right. Then what if he's taking care of, just naturally taking care of the child?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Then you probably need to have somebody else write an affidavit that you're supporting the child, because they're not going to give it a citizenship without that. That's one of the requirements.
So those of you who are taking care of your children, some type of proof needs to be there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I know enough of we have a look at change in our pocket and say, all right, some sneakers for the picnic for go school, see some lunch money here, see some this there.
I want to get along with the baby mother most of the time, but
take this and pay half of your rent.
Buy money out of. Don't just give them cash.
Some proof have to be there.
Yes. Some proof. And so if you give them money in money order, then you can make copies of those money orders to show that you're
let me see if I can slide in a call before we get to the top of the hour. Call you live.
Yeah, I'm calling about a situation. Like, I'm American citizen. I'm far from my kids. They're here 10 years, but I live in Ohio, but they live in New York. But my baby mother like to give a little run around, and I'm trying to get my daughter passport, but she's 20. So I'll go about that.
Wait a minute. If she's over 18, you don't need the mother's permission. You said you want to get your daughter a U.S. passport?
Yeah.
You don't need the mother permission. The child's an adult. The child can sign the application for the passport without her. You do not need the mother's permission. Only if the kid was under 18, you would need that. Because, when you try to get a U.S. passport for a child, if the child is under 18, then the mother has to sign and the father has to sign. Right. Both parents have to give consent. If the child is over 18 years old, that child is an adult. You do not need the parents.
So the child can get their own passport?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, just go apply. Pick the adult. Over 18.
718-554-8598. I'm enjoying the conversation.
Yes, I'm
very informative. So many people are my WhatsApp is definitely moving, and people are saying that they're enjoying and they're learning and they're listening to some of the stuff that we are saying, and hopefully we can come up with some more things that might relate to some of the situations that people have out there. But I'm interested to hear the other side of the conversation. Because I want to speak to
Herb Nelson.
Herb Nelson. I want to speak to Herb Nelson because what he can provide for us is why he thinks these things have to happen or need to happen, and why is this cleansing of immigrants, so necessary. You know what I mean? So there's two sides to every story. When we come back from the break, Ms. Pinnock, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Sound Chat Radio. I have another important guest that was going to be talking to us by phone. I don't want anybody to call the phone lines right now because I want to reach out to him. But in the midst of reaching out to him, what I would like to ask you, because we were having this, behind the scenes talk during the commercial type of situation. The question that I would like to ask right now is this: the deportation of Caribbean people back to Trinidad, back to Jamaica, back to wherever throughout the Caribbean, right? Is this a money-making business? Can we look at this as, it all comes down to dollars and cents. Yes, the new government is doing cleansing. They think this cleansing is necessary, but do the countries such as Jamaica and Trinidad and other places benefit, money wise? Yes,
that is true. Yes, they do. Because what happens is,
I was hoping that you were going to say no. So they do benefit.
They do. There is a monetary compensation, and it varies from country to country as to how much they'll get paid if they take their nationals back.
Well,
because what happens is very sad. Because what happens most of the time is that when some country, you have the right to say, I'm refusing to take this person for whatever reason. You can refuse to take them, so they compensate you, or it's almost like a reward for accepting your national.
So that would be per person.
Yes, per person.
So those of you who were listening to the conversation that we were having months back, and someone called in and said, "Yo, Jamaica, I get 20,000 US. Them I get 20,000 pound." Now we don't know how much they're getting, but based on what Miss Pinnock is saying, her knowledge says that there is some type of compensation, which will, spiral into another conversation in weeks to come. Because if the government is getting paid, and we're just talking about the Jamaican government now, because that's mostly what we talk about here, right? But if any government is getting paid, then the next thing that I would be thinking about is the fact that they should set up,
exactly
things and programs to facilitate those who are coming back. Remember, a lot of the people who are getting deported came here when they were 5 years old, 4 years old. Them that know nothing about Jamaica, Trinidad, nothing about it at all. You know what I mean? So, when you are in Jamaica, you start to see the life, the choices that the deported people have. A lot of them resort to stealing. A lot of them resort to the window washing, the scamming. And you have to look at it for what it is. And I hope that I don't offend anybody by saying this, but guess what? When you there foreign and I live big life, and you get yourself in trouble, and now you end back at Jamaica and you don't have any of that money to live that big life that you used to live, you're going to do anything that you can to get yourself back in that comfort zone of living a lifestyle that you've been used to for so many years. You know what I mean? Buja Bantan boy get deported, come down in a one pants. You know what I mean? And he speaks about someone who was living, Benz and Beamer, what he used to have. He speaks of someone who was away from the country, living this fabulous life, and now they're back in Jamaica and they're suffering. And I think that just that alone is the seed of a lot of crime that will take place in the future. Because people can't adjust to the new lifestyle that they're having. The phone lines are ringing. Of course, I'm going to take one call, and then we're going to try to see if we can reach out to another guest. Caller, you're live.
Yes, hi. Can I speak with Miss Pinnock?
Yes, you can.
I'm here.
Yes, hi, Miss Pinnock. I wanted to ask, supposedly your paperwork is in process, which you get your
work
social, your work permit and whatever, right? And you meet up in a situation where, ISIS or whatever. Can you be deported?
Yeah, because if you haven't gotten your green card yet, you're saying that it's being processed?
Yes, it's in process.
Right. So if they lock you up, then you're going to have to convince the judge that you're eligible to get your green card. And so hopefully you can win your deportation case. But if they pick you up, you're going to go before a judge, my darling. And the judge is going to have to make a decision as to whether or not you get to stay here. Now, is the paperwork you're referring to, is this a husband filing for a wife?
Yes, a husband filing for a wife.
So you might be able to get out, because if you can show that it's a bona fide marriage, then they might just terminate the deportation.
With kids?
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah. So you're good to go. You don't have to worry about none. But, it's really a sad thing because you're this close to getting
So in the situation where if your papers are in process and you get caught up with the land, ICE, pick up by ICE.
Right.
If you can prove to them that I have my paperwork in process, and
you should be all right. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go before a judge, and if you have an attorney, the attorney will say this person is eligible to adjust their status because they have a U.S. citizen spouse and several children who was born into the marriage. So the judge will more than likely either close the case, terminate the deportation, and send them to an immigration.
But suppose the person is not married. Suppose the person just has kids with a woman or women.
You got propose.
You forget.
That's it. You need to get married. That's it. You have to go propose straight up. Straight up, you have to go. You go propose because the plan can't help you unless the kids are over 21. Then you know, otherwise you're in trouble. You need to go marry the spouse if the spouse that you are.
So even though you are in the process of getting your things sorted out, right? You're in the process of getting your things sorted out, and you get yourself into some type of trouble, or something from your past comes back to haunt you.
Right.
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 You're saying that if you just have kids,
right,
but you're not married, you can.
But how would you be getting? See, her question was the papers are being processed because she's married to a U.S. citizen. But the sad thing about that is that even though the papers are being processed, you can be caught up with the ICE for no reason. She probably has never broken the law in her life.
Okay, I'm a green card holder. Right. And I'm a green card holder.
That's a different scenario because she doesn't have a green card.
But, okay, so let's look at this scenario and hopefully it relates to someone else.
Right.
I'm a green card holder and I'm in the middle of my green card and my citizenship. Right. So I'm proving that I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm proving that I pay my taxes. I'm proving that I owe no child support. I'm not married. Right. Now I get myself into a situation where either I'm somewhere where I seems to just show up and I get caught up, or something from my past comes back to haunt me. I may have 15 misdemeanors or 2 felonies. Right. How does that work?
Well, you basically would have to convince the court that you're eligible for either a waiver or some other form of relief. You'd have to find some way to get out of deportation if that's it. Because most people who go before the immigration judge, some of them are green card holders and they're being deported because of their conviction. So if they're, like for instance, I have a case right now where my guy has 3 convictions of possession of drugs with intent to distribute. And because at the time, before this case law was passed, you know, he was only eligible to say he was afraid to go back to Jamaica, which is really a tough hurdle to climb because usually most people don't win those cases. And then there's a law that a case that was just decided called Chang Cruz, which says that in New Jersey, if you're convicted of an aggravated felony, so you're convicted of possession of marijuana with intent to distribute within a school zone, and it's a New Jersey statute, you're not, that's not an aggravated felony. So you're eligible to get a waiver. You can eligible to apply for cancellation of removal. This guy thought he was going back to Jamaica. The law just passed, and he's able to use it. So what I did was I said to the judge, you know, my client is now eligible because of this law, and he said, write me a brief. I wrote the brief. The judge sent the order, said, Ms. Pinnock, you're absolutely on point. I'm going to allow your client to now apply for cancellation, which is like a waiver. So he's going to get that. You understand? So he's not going to be deported now as long as I can win my case for cancellation. So you have to find forms of relief to get out of deportation. And he's a green card holder. He's been one for many years. 718-554-8598. We are having some very good conversation here at Sound Chat Radio. Those of you who are just tuning in, we're speaking immigration. Now, we've been speaking to Miss Joan Pinnock for quite some time now about, you know, immigration and, you know, what to do to avoid certain situations. One of the advice that she's giving everyone right away, if you are a green card holder, try to become a citizen, like right away, like get your thing in motion. You know what I mean? Those of you who are unnaturalized, try to do something to get yourself naturalized, because she's saying that this is a very rough time that we're living in right now for unnaturalized immigrants and so forth. Now on the phone we have Herb Nelson, right? And one of the reasons why we wanted to include Herb Nelson or Mr. Nelson into this conversation is because he can give us a different perspective, right? Miss Pinnock's occupation. Good night, sir. Good night, sir. Miss Pinnock's occupation is to defend those. Defend those. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that if you and Mr. Nelson is good friends, you guys go back and forth sometimes, right? Yes.
So I would
defend. That's all I can do. I can't think, prosecution. I don't know. I can't put my head in that realm. It's just defend. I'm an advocate for people.
Mr. Nelson, welcome to our show here at Sound Chat Radio. The whole diaspora is listening to this conversation, and we're trying to grant some sense of relief to what's going on in our communities and how some people are, following fake news, and a lot of people are panicking. Some don't even want to come out of their house because of this whole, immigration, deportation situation that's going on. Can you speak to us from a different perspective other than Miss Joan Pinnock, from, why these things are happening and why they need to happen from a law enforcement perspective?
Well, coming from a law enforcement perspective, the Jamaica Diaspora Crime Intervention and Prevention Task Force was formed last year in May to take a look at the situation, not only here in the diaspora, but also in Jamaica. So Jamaica feels the impact of the return of so many people at an inopportune time when the country can least afford it. But let's look at this problem seriously. This has been a problem since the 80s. And if you can recall what was happening in the 80s in Jamaica, there was a lot of political upheaval, and there were a lot of people running for the U.S., the UK, and Canada. Well, you had gunmen that could travel from the island effortlessly and move back and forth. And honest people who needed a visa could not get it. So what you have to look at is cause and effect. What caused that migration back then was possibly the undermining of the government at that time. And so that when those people left the island, up to 500,000 people ran from the island, there was a brain drain, and all those people left. Now, the folks who were there were not properly equipped, education-wise, and even when they left, managed to get out of the island, they came here to the U.S., and what we found was that they could not communicate and grasp, even though we are speaking English. There's a lot of these folks could not communicate with the U.S. system. In other words, we did not properly prepare our people for migration. There's a lot of things taken for granted. They came here with the same bad habits that they had in Jamaica. And when they got here, they could not fit into certain social orders. The result being they would then assimilate to whatever they understood within the communities. I remember my mom saying to me, stay out of the park. Don't go over there. Those boys are shooting up the park. They play a lot of football. You like to play football, but stay out of the park. Well, I still went to the park, and I still witnessed a lot of violence over there in Prospect Park in Brooklyn. And if we were able, like my mom prepared me, to listen and to heed and to figure out why am I here, education, get a better education, move ahead, decide what direction you want to go in life. But a lot of our kids did not fit that bill. They did not come here prepared for college. And they did not have the opportunity. They probably were too old to go back to high school. And so the only thing that they would fit into readily were gangs. You get into that bad company, you get into gangs, you deal drugs, you use drugs. All of these issues has been going on for the last 30 years. And today, it is now what we're saying, things have come up to bump. It has come up to bump because this president has decided enough is enough. Okay? Now, is there a cure for all of this? You probably are going to have to go through a lot of court action. A lot of lawyers are going to be very active. They'll make good money, but the bottom line is a lot of people are going to be leaving the U.S. bound for Jamaica. According to the ambassador, over the last 10 years, over 20,000 people were deported. And there's no way that law enforcement can change that. We have programs today, such as Safer Cities program, where we go in and we try to work with gangs. We try to isolate the gang leaders, try to convert them, or try to extract them, send them off to jail through the court system. But we cannot work fast enough performing a variety of tasks on the Safer Cities to help everybody. This thing is beyond the control of the church. People don't even go to church anymore. It's beyond the control of community organizations because they don't attend community meetings. So all the civic duties that we were used to back in the early 70s and 80s, Progressive League, Freedom League, all these other groups that are in New York, they're not being supported like they are today. Now, people come running back now that they're being deported and they're asking for help. And it is just not feasible to take a drug dealer or take somebody who's murdered a couple of people, even though they might have gotten off some of the charges, they might have been convicted of a lesser charge, but it is enough for law enforcement to move them out and to get rid of that problem. Politics is hell. And mayors are judged on their ability to control crime and to allow people to live with a certain degree of safety. And this is the job of law enforcement.
Let me ask you this.
You've got to enforce the law, and you've got to let the courts do the job. Now, if the defenders of these young men and women find that they are redemptive issues, then they'll raise that in court, and if the court agrees, they might be deferred or they might get to stay. But at this point, going back and collecting on old charges that people were found guilty of to rid them from the communities, it's established, it's a cleanup of the community that has been needed or been foreboding for a very long time.
So, Mr. Nelson,
and this is what's happening.
What about people who may have changed their lives? So I'm a green card holder, and I committed, in growing up and making my way through life, in my my late teens or my early 20s, I got in trouble, whether it was gun possession, whether it was selling drugs. But I'm now 50 years old and I've been living a clean life and I've been paying taxes and I have a family now and I've directly changed my life. But one day, ICE comes to me based on what I did 20 or 30 years ago. Is that something that you think is cleaning the community as well?
Well, here's the key. If that ever occurred and you appear in court, when the judge looks around, if you're the only one standing there, what does that tell the judge? Okay? Now, if you've got half of the community, your pastor, police officers, or others who were standing behind you and are vouching for you and are challenging that deportation, and the judge finds that it is a reasonable challenge, I'm sure the judge will listen. And I'm sure that he will adjudicate accordingly. But the problem is, if you're 1 in 10 or 1 in 20, you might be able to win your case. You might be able to argue your case, and others might be able to argue along with you successfully to allow you to stay. If you can prove that your contribution to the community has been upstanding and that was aberration, 10, 20, 30 years ago.
So, is there anything about this system that is currently put in place to deport people that you feel needs to be adjusted, or you feel that everything is fair as long as you came here and you got yourself in trouble at some point in your life? This cleansing is necessary, because there are people that live in our communities who have changed their life that probably don't go to church, and they probably don't know a police officer to come and vouch for them in court. But the fact that they don't have a police record or a speeding ticket for 25 years should stand for someone who has changed their life. If you look at their early records and see that every month and a half they were in prison or getting arrested. So I understand from the perspective that you're coming from as a law agent, but at the same time, I'm thinking that there is a shade of gray there that the law really just doesn't care about. The law is saying, I don't care whether you changed your life. You got in trouble when you were in high school, and you are a green card holder, and we're not going to allow you to become a citizen. Go back to Jamaica or go back to Trinidad. I don't know if you're seeing that part there.
Well, when I sat here tonight and I'm looking at statistics all the way back to the census, and what those stats are telling me, they're very dismal. Okay, I'm not looking at people, and I'm not appealing to the judge or to my fellow officers based on on how good or how bad or the redemptive value that people have. But if you're looking at the sheer statistics of what has occurred to members of our Jamaican society and other Caribbeanites, it is not good for a small country. Jamaica has really been off the charts when it comes to crime, and we're not talking about easy crime. We're talking about murders. We're talking about drugs. So if there's a belief on the part of the government that we have this propensity to be criminal, and we have very little redemptive value, and that our community, our Caribbean community, Jamaican community, does not put our own people in check, or does not speak out against the ills that have affected us for the last 20 or 30 years, then you leave the judges very little choice.
I have people who
so what has to happen is it's like a strainer. Everybody that's been convicted of a felony or some type of misdemeanor that qualifies for deportation, they have to put in this strainer, and that's the court.
I have people,
and they have to argue their case. They have to make the case.
I have people who are
saying things came up the bump. After all this time, now you have to say why you should get to say. But that the mood that this president is in, and the mood that law enforcement is in, they're not very forgiving, because they've been restricted or constricted for so long against moving people out of the community, people who are really bad people, that they've not had that opportunity until now.
So listen,
and President Trump has now opened the gate to allow people to go.
Listen, I have people
under those circumstances. It's unfortunate, but it's what we term maybe a necessary evil.
I have people who are asking. I guess they're just tuning in, Mr. Nelson, and they're just asking for your credentials. Like, what is your background? You're speaking of statistics and studying and I just want you to let everyone know why you have this knowledge that you do have. What is your background?
My background, I served 24 years in the military, part of which was with the military police, and I did time about 15 years within our intelligence community. And I was a senior intelligence analyst when I left the military community. when I left the intelligence community, rather. That means I ran a lot of statistics that either had to prove or disprove different hypotheses about either crime or about some bad people, terrorism, narco trafficking. There's a whole spectrum of things I've worked with over the last 20 years, which includes the time with the Jamaica Diaspora Crime Intervention and Prevention Task Force. So when I'm looking at a problem, the statistics have to bear out the fact that this is an issue that cannot be handled simply by forgive and forget. Because what we have, the rate of recidivism has been pretty high among our population. And I'm talking about across the Caribbean. And the fact that it's been that high means that our people are not, if you look at the prison system, it's unforgiving. People go to jail, they come out, and it's very difficult for them to assimilate back into the community. So they're going to go with what they know best.
Question.
They're going to go with crime.
So
and
let me ask you.
Back to jail over and over.
Mr. Nelson, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question for you. So you don't believe that people deserve a second chance? What's your position on that? I mean, I understand and I do understand the history. Do you believe that everybody deserves a second chance?
Well, people have been getting second chances, third chances, fourth chances. Yeah, I believe you deserve a second chance.
Okay.
And I believe that there are ways of, our young men proving themselves. The military is what kept me out of the different parks and out of trouble. I served my time. I could have left earlier. Fortunately, I got married and started having kids. And I stayed with it for 24 years. But a lot of our people, thousands, tens of thousands of our people have served, not just in the military, they've served in other areas of government. And they're serving honorably today. But the things that I'm saying to you, where the community has to reach deep down inside and do a self-examination of what could we have done better to avoid this day from ever occurring. And what do we need to do now to show redemption within our community? Jamaica has been number one on deportations for too long. Why is that so? Why can't we change it? We can go back and we can blame the government back in the 80s, and we can blame the opposition. We can blame a lot of different people because we allowed ourselves to be overrun by outsiders way back when.
Maybe
you could even call our people economic refugees.
Right.
But certainly people were in danger living in certain communities within Jamaica. As they stayed, they probably would have been killed, and they had to leave.
Do you believe that pre-migration?
We can point out those things, but this is something politicians have to argue.
Right.
That's not for law enforcement to deal with.
I just have another question. Do you believe that pre-migration education would be useful to tell people what, to avoid the pitfalls before they come out of Jamaica?
Let me interject 1 second, right? So those people can find the purpose of the conversation that we're having. 718-554-8598 is the number in studio. Of course, I have Mr. Herb Nelson on the phone line, and I wanted to include him in today's show because he represents another understanding and perspective of what's going on. So Miss Pinnock is in the studio, and she is here to help. She's here to those of you who have committed these crimes or got yourself lined up or just been here, due to family and you're not naturalized, whatever your situation is. Her job is to help to stop you from being deported, right? Now, Mr. Nelson's intelligence and his job is showing you the reason why you need to be deported. This is a balanced conversation. So some of you are saying that, I'm reading the chat room and some are saying they're not getting any substance of help from, Mr. Nelson. He's not on the phone to help. No. He's on the phone to give you the reality of why the government is looking at the Caribbean or looking at Jamaica in the way that they are looking at them. He's on the phone to tell you why what Chin is saying about changing your life after 25 years doesn't matter to them. Because Mr. Nelson is basically saying this is based on statistics. This is based on research. This is based on, repetitive behavior. So they're looking at this and they're coming to a decision based on, okay, this is what Jamaicans do. And based on the documents, based on the history, if this Jamaican lands here and you leave him here, he's going to do this. That's all it means, right? So this is two different sides of a conversation. We can't just look at the, what's happening in our culture from one side. And you can agree with Mr. Nelson or you could disagree with him. You can agree with Joan or you could disagree with her. But at the same time, I respect the fact that Mr. Nelson is part of today's show because he's giving you a harsh reality that reflects the law of the government. You know what I mean? 718-554-8598. The phone lines are blazing. Unfortunately, while Mr. Nelson is on the phone, I can't plug in anybody else. And I know that them are going to cuss. Them are here. Mr. Nelson a yard man, so him knows them all get couple cuss now. Because them all say,
Mr. Nelson, very militant boy.
Militant.
Very militant.
That's why.
What I get from Mr. Nelson is that here we are going. Don't get in that trouble, period.
Yeah.
Don't get in that trouble because there's no second chance for no. Don't get in no kind of trouble.
But Mr. Nelson, I want to take some calls and so I want to let you go, but I definitely want you to give the people some last words of advice coming representing the aspect that you represent as a government representative on tonight's show. Please give them some last words so I can take some calls because I know some people are furious about what you said and I want to get some of their conversation as well.
Look, the reason we all, most of us, I should say, migrated is because we came here for the opportunities. We didn't come here to tear down America. We have always come to America to build up America. We have an outstanding history as members of the American society. Garvey, he brought ideas to our community about owning your own business, entrepreneurship, about so many different things that he enlightened us on. People came here and they have turned out wonderful kids, from General Powell to a Shirley Chisholm, a multitude of different people who have come to the U.S. and have done quite well. Those folks blazed the trail and left a legacy for all of us to follow. If we blow that by coming here and assuming that the government owes us something or that we're going to take advantage of our communities and we're going to degrade and destroy our communities, then what President Trump is saying, you came to the wrong place. So the old saying, straighten up and fly right, it is applicable today. And Jamaica needs to come off the top of the list for deportees. That's all I can say. You've got to work with your mosque, your church, your temples, whatever organizations exist. This should be the goal, not just to stop the deportation, but to change our image. Unless we do that, we're going to, and if we stay at the top of the list, then we're going to be going through this argument every month for the next 4 years, because unless you guys have enough votes to get rid of this president, it's not going to happen.
See,
you're facing probably the toughest time for our communities and for our people who have shown that they have redemption, they have redeemed themselves. So my hat's off to those people. And if I ever could, if there's a time that I could stand up for you, I would. I would have to look at the case. I would have to look at the situation, and then I would gladly speak up on your behalf. But at this point,
the phone lines are going.
Has had enough, and it's time for some people to move on.
The phone lines are going crazy, man. Thank you so much for adding your perspective, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson is a no tolerance to, but he represents he represents how the government feels.
Exactly. I hear what he's saying, you know.
And I think that having him on the show is a great thing because the community needs to hear. You know what I mean?
Reality
Just think of Mr. Nelson's testimony a while ago as the people who are sitting in the Oval Office. Think of him as the head of the ICE department where say go out and get those people and lock them up. This is the same perspective that they have. And this is the perspective that we have to hear. Right? The phone lines are blazing. Now listen, the phone lines are blazing. Miss Pinnock, we gotta take the calls. We gotta take
Pinnock,
them.
You're our leader right now.
We gotta take them. And Miss Pinnock, I know that some people are probably gonna be very aggressive, but we gotta take the calls. Caller, you're live.
Hello?
Hello.
I want to know. I wanted to address Mr. Nelson, but unfortunately he had to hang up.
But he's listening. He's listening.
He is okay. He was speaking of statistics, and I want to say to him that somewhere along the line, I don't want to go into too many details. I have read that baby mamas and baby daddies are contributing to crime because of the environment that they're bringing their children in. Many boys who are sitting in prison come from baby mamas. So what I was saying before when I called the moral turpitude also is a very important issue with the immigration people. We have to build the character of the families.
Okay.
And mothers have to be discouraged from having children out of wedlock. That's all I have. And I wanted to ask Mr. Nelson, doesn't he have a crime statistic that shows that most men sitting in prison, sitting in Rikers Island, come from baby mamas?
Okay.
That's all.
All right. She seems very
passionate.
But that's what these conversations are supposed to do. It's supposed to get in your gut and to turn it and rip it out. Caller, you're live. Caller, you're live.
Yeah, hello?
Yes, talk to me.
Yeah, the gentleman that was speaking earlier on before, he's 100% right what he's talking about. These people in America, they don't seem to understand what's going on. What Donald Trump is doing, this is nothing new. In 1966, in Europe, the same thing was in effect with the Jamaicans. A lot of people don't understand, but there was an order placed in 1966 to deport certain amount of Jamaicans out of Europe. Just as the gentleman was saying, education, they don't understand. This is nothing new what Donald Trump is doing. They did it before in Europe.
Okay. 718-554-8598. Caller, you're live. This is your opportunity, people. We have about 15 minutes left in the studio. Miss Pinnock is here. And those of you who have your situations, I'm going to give you, a number again that you can reach out to her, and hopefully she can help your situation. The message tonight, of course, is to get yourself situated.
Naturalize.
Right? Get yourself naturalized. Caller, you're live.
All right. First of all, Miss Pinnock, we love you.
Love you too.
Yeah, we love your energy. We love people like you.
Yes.
Yesterday, brethren will come on a while ago. When name is Nelson. If you have people like them there, advocate or attack on behalf of Jamaican people must be doomed. Now, me a youth who grew up in the 70s in Jamaica, and me remember when you have to give up $2 Jamaican for $1 US. However, this country, and we have said loud and clear, this country with them evil policies worldwide. Come to our country in the 70s with a gunman. The gunman named IMF and the USAID. And you when that gunman they stand up on the corner making policies. Hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans feel it. So much so that we have to run from Jamaica. We Jamaicans came here and we build America. Me live in Brooklyn. And me say, well, we Jamaicans build the country, give the country trillions of dollars. And we never sit down and make them look a bossy slave talk to come make them talk there. Listen to me. You bring statistics. This is what you do. Tell us how many millions of Jamaicans living in America. Okay? And then you tell us of those millions of Jamaicans in America, how many are committing crime. Okay, you talk about crime. The country go around the world. Come in my country, Jamaica. Mash up the farmers, them. Okay? Mash up the social society. Mash up the socio-economical aspect of the country. And then third way, we can come here, come get a better life. We come and try to get a better life. And every day, them put obstacles in front of we. And we not stop talk that. And Marcus Garvey tell we say, we know ourselves. And we not stop. Because we live through it. We live through it. Okay? This when the brother they can start talk about what the IMF do, then we can stay at the same table. Then we can stay at the same table.
Sure.
We're not talking about gunman, but know who is the IMF.
All right, my brother. Call you live.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just wanted to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I can share that I was born here in America, but my father is from Haiti, and my mother was an American. The thing that I wanted to say to Ms. Pinnock, I appreciate her advocacy, and I appreciate Mr. Nelson's position. The other thing that I would like to tell the Caribbean and diasporic family is that I too worked in law enforcement and the military, and I left law enforcement and the military because of the allegations that Mr. Nelson also proved that the Jamaicans, the Trinidadians, the Barbadians, the Guyans, the people from Panama, my brothers from Panama, and the Dominicans were all criminals. I can tell you from my history that I worked in communities where I was the only black in a police precinct. And I can tell you that when brothers and sisters were arrested on the street, I watched and observed, and I stepped in when I saw a planting of drugs on young people. And I can tell you that the scars that my body has for doing that also speeded my departure from the military and from police services. The one thing that I would ask all the people listening to understand is that this is an adversarial relationship. This is an adversarial relationship. Ms. Pinnock does valiant work in a court of law. But police and intelligence services are adversarial. They're not there for your friendship. They're not there to propose how to get a young lady safety or tell a young brother how to get home at night. They're there adversarially. And so the one thing that Mr. Nelson did that I hope that everyone understood is he warned you, he warned my son and my grandchildren, don't trust the law enforcement unless you absolutely need them. And yes, our community does have to stand. And I was attacked because I said to brothers, you can't sell drugs over here. But the men in my community formed and said, no, you can't do this here. And even after we did that, then the policing agencies came down on us. And tell me, I can tell you, oh, you're a policeman. Yeah, what are you doing? Here's my badge. And then they would kindly say, well, you can't do over this here. What you union rep? What are you going to do? You got to go back. And I got called on the carpet more times than I can dare say in this brief moment sharing, and I thank you for it. But please, community, understand, this is an adversary. They are not your friends. Good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. solid conversation tonight.
Yes, yes, really.
Solid conversation
but,
tonight.
Even though her ticked off so many people, the reality is that that's Donald Trump's position. He has no mercy. And that executive order that I talked about earlier basically is saying for too long, these things, mediocre things have been going on where people have been getting away with committing crimes, walking around scotch-free after how many years of being convicted of different offenses. So now it's a no-holds-bar, zero tolerance world we're living into. And people are basically at the point now where, they should be concerned. I mean, I'm not trying to put fear in anyone, but I think you have an opportunity now to lawfully look into getting legal status in the United States and U.S. citizenship. Stop, waste time, let the years go by. No, naturalization is really important. The thing that I wanted to say, which is really important, I get the call a lot. If you're applying to become a U.S. citizen and you don't know how to read, or you don't know, because you're going to have to pass the test. Right. You're going to be required to basically take a test on civic exam on history and government. And you're going to have to know, and lots of people come to me, and you're going to have to write the reading and the writing test. There is a way that if for some reason you had an issue when you were a child, we send you to a doctor, and the doctor writes a report saying that you do not have to take the test, because some people had brain injuries, some people have dementia because they can't remember some of the answers. So you don't have to worry that just because you're eligible to become a citizen, you don't know how to read and write, or you can't remember things,
or you're having difficulty doing
right,
so.
Difficult, exactly. We can send you to a doctor. I have a guy here in Manhattan that I use, and he's amazing. And so what he does is he examines you. It's like a 4-hour test, and he writes a report, and nobody has to take the test. So that's one good thing.
So the moral of the story is that those of you, before you just sit there and do nothing, ask questions. Get in contact with Ms. Pinnock and say, this is my situation. How can you help? Let Ms. Pinnock say there's no way possible to help. But, based on some of the things that you said tonight, there are things that I didn't even know that is possible. The number in studio is 718-554-8598. Good conversation goes very fast. So we got about 5 more minutes left in the building. Ms. Pinnock, we got about 3 minutes. Please give everything that you need to give.
Sure. Okay, so again, if you're here in the U.S. and you're undocumented, now is the time for you to go look about getting your green card, getting yourself legal. If you're a green card holder and you've been one for 5 years or 3 years if you're married to a U.S. citizen, please go apply for your U.S. citizenship. It is so important. You're protected, and we talked about this earlier. The only time they can take away your citizenship is if you have an act of treason. Right. Okay, meaning you did something against the government. So very rarely does that happen. Those are like the people that they're trying to ban from coming here who've been involved in terrorist activities. That's the only time. So for the most part, please go apply for your U.S. citizenship. It's time to do it. Do not sit by idly anymore. If you need to reach me, it's 929-320-0955. 929-320-0955. 0955. That's the number to call me. It's a hotline for the Immigration and Deportation Prevention Task Force. If you have somebody in crisis who's been picked up by ICE, call that number, 929-320-0955. We have attorneys standing by to assist and help you deal with your immigration problem.
Yeah, brothers and sisters, it's now the time to get serious,
Yeah, definitely.
Get serious, get yourself naturalized, do what you have to do, Like Miss Pinnock said, find somebody married, somebody, you know what I mean? We don't want to see brothers and sisters getting deported and sent back home. So getting yourself sorted out the right way, you know what I mean?
And something we said of Valley earlier, what Miss Pinnock said is letting people know that's on their way to this country know the rules of what's going on, how to conduct yourself. Because you come here and run up and down while, and then you ruin an opportunity that's granted to you. You know what I mean? So prevention better than cure, right? So think about that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Any final words, Chin?
Good night. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure that you're locked in on Monday. Ms. Pinnock, again, it was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.